Alright guys, welcome to episode 2 of how to modify your Juke or MR16DDT if you don't have a Juke. Today we're going to be talking about preventative modifications. These are aftermarket modifications you can do to your MR16 that actually will prevent damage in the future or help clean up current damage that is going on in your car. It won't fix anything, but it will help. So a direct injection engine puts the fuel injector inside of the combustion chamber, leaves the injector susceptible to carbon buildup on the tip of it, which would be right here. And also, because it's not spraying onto your intake valves, it also allows for the buildup of carbon or other deposits such as oil deposits on the valves themselves. So your normal fuel injected car, the fuel sprays into the combustion chamber through the valve. So some of that fuel hits the valves, hits the intake area, and it's called fuel wash. It washes the deposits away. They go into the combustion chamber, they get burnt off and sent out the exhaust, all is good. So because you don't have that added benefit, you need to do a couple of things to prevent carbon buildup on the valves and carbon buildup in the combustion chamber. The number one thing to do is oil catch cans. A very simple concept, as water and oil vapors are pulled out of your crankcase by the PCV system. It obviously has to go back into the intake system, so that means you have oil, mostly oil vapor and some water going into the intake system, going back into the engine. Now, because you don't have the fuel to clean off the valves, it just cakes onto those hot valves and turns into this what we call carbon buildup. By running the oil catch can, you're separating that oil vapor and the water vapor from the physical air that's being pulled out, which it's what the purpose of the system is. It wants to pull out positive pressure, and by doing that, it means all the air going back into your system is mostly clean. So it's a very, very, very good idea to put these on most of these direct injection cars, especially the turbocharged ones where you're going to have a lot more air getting pulled out of the crankcase due to the tolerances and the boost pressure in the cylinder. So that's the first thing. The second thing to help with the carbon buildup problem is actually methanol injection. That's right, it's not just for race cars. So meth injection, when used in a performance aspect, allows you to run more timing. It prevents pre-ignition or knock. We'll talk about that in a later episode. But on the cleaning side of things, it gets sprayed into your intake manifold. So it goes through your intake tracks and it goes over your valves, kind of like we were just talking about with your normal fuel injected cars. Now, what does that do? Well, if you don't have any carbon, it cleans anything up that might be building up, so that prevents carbon buildup and prevents deposits from forming, which means your engine's going to run better. It also can clean existing deposits or things that are on your fuel injectors. So basically, the water that goes into the system, steam cleans on its way out. It will take some carbon off. It will loosen some stuff up so it falls off. I know that sounds dangerous, but in the small amounts it's really not. But you have to be careful. If you run too much water, methanol into the system, you're going to affect your air-fuel ratios. The car's not going to like it. You're going to get some massive blow-by. So you want to run like the really small nozzle if you're doing the cleaning stuff. If you're going to be going for performance, we'll talk about that again. We'll talk about that in a later episode. You can run a bigger nozzle. A couple other small things that you can do to help save your engine or prevent damage is a magnetic drain plug. This catches small metal particles as they circulate through your oil pan. You can get them really cheap on Amazon or eBay. Just make sure you get a nice one, the single piece one, so you don't have stuff breaking off. That will also help you identify if you have an issue with your engine. If you do an oil change and then another oil change and that second oil change, there's a lot more stuff going on, a lot more stuff on the magnet. And you know you might have something going on, you might want to have it looked at by a professional. Something free that you can actually do is remove your intake resonator or silencer. So you have your air box, and then there's a tube that comes off of the air box. It doesn't go to the engine, it's the other side. And it's actually designed to make your intake quieter. So this will make your intake a little louder. Some of you want that. You hear that turbo whistle a little more. You get that blow-off valve kind of sound. Now, the reason I suggest doing this, because of the shape, and there's a little chamber down the bottom, it tends to gather debris, leaves, dust, dirt, water. After it fills up so much, after so much time, that stuff's going to get sucked into the air box. Now, your engine air filter is supposed to do its job. It's going to filter it out. But doing this prevents the air filter from getting dirty quicker. So this actually will save your engine air filter. Also, it prevents water from getting on your engine air filter as much. So instead of that water going into that tube and then getting sucked up and covering your filter, bigger opening on the intake, unless there's water directly going onto it, isn't going to really pull up that moisture. Also, if you ever have an incident where your fender liner comes off and it damages that piece of plastic that's sitting in the fender, that can get pushed into the intake and potentially cause damage as well. So it's kind of just a preventative thing for worst case scenarios, but you do get good sound out of it, so I definitely suggest that. Another fairly cheap and inexpensive modification you do is a mechanical boost vacuum gauge. I know what you're going to say, well, you know, that's a performance thing. I want to see my boost. Actually, you can get a lot of data out of a boost gauge. It can tell you if a lot of things are going wrong with your car. It can tell you if your car is running healthy. If your car is set to run 12 pounds of boost, and it does that forever and ever, and then one day all of a sudden it's only making 9. Well, that's not right. If you didn't have that gauge, you wouldn't really know that you're down on boost. So you maybe have a boost leak, maybe your boost solenoid's malfunctioning, maybe your turbo's on its way out. And also on the opposite side of the spectrum, you're running 12 pounds of boost and then one day you're making 16, 17 pounds of boost. Well, that's not good. You're going to blow the car up. So it gives you that warning that maybe you have boost control failure or something of that nature. Go get it looked at, prevent damage. Helps you get better fuel economy. Keep the car on vacuum, you get better fuel economy. In theory, these tiny turbo cars have a hard time getting good fuel economy. It helps. I personally have one in my car for that reason. Also can tell you if you have any vacuum leaks or if you have an engine problem, if your vacuum isn't where it's supposed to be, you can go look up how to use that to diagnose different issues somewhere else on the YouTube. And finally, the best preventative thing you can do to your Juke or MR16, especially if you have a CVT, are coolers. I'm not talking about radiators, I'm talking about oil and CVT coolers. CVTs are notorious for having temperature problems. When they get too hot, when you're driving for too long, they start to actually shut the car down. You can't accelerate, you don't get as much torque. A CVT cooler can be made for around 50 bucks. We did an awesome video showing you how to make one, how to install it. I'll put a link to that in the description. It also prolongs your CVT fluid life and it prolongs the CVT life because you're not going to damage the fluid that's in there. So I definitely suggest CVT fluid cooler. Now there's engine oil coolers as well. This is more aimed at those of you living in the hotter climates or those of you that really beat the snot out of your car. Engine oil cooler is going to prevent the oil from losing its viscosity, which as we know is a bad thing. If you get your viscosity too low, you can get major engine damage. It also keeps your overall engine temperature lower. You got a lot of oil in your car and it circulates a lot and really quick. So if your oil's 200 degrees, your engine's going to see that constant 200 degrees no matter what your coolant's doing. So you want to cool that down. You don't want to cool it down too much unless you're on a racetrack. That's a different thing. But it can be a preventative thing. It can stop a lot of bad things from happening. Now I will say this. This is a glow shift oil sandwich plate. This actually is one that is designed to fit Nissans. This does not fit the Juke. I'm going to say it again, this will not fit the Juke right out of the box. You need some serious modifications to happen to this. I don't suggest playing around with one on your car because if you put it on and you don't do it right, you can develop an oil leak. And there's a lot of oil that comes out of the filter housing very quickly and you can cause some damage to your engine. But again, this will not bolt directly up to your Juke. The oil pan design does not allow it. So that's just a friendly warning out there for you. Nobody makes sandwich plates that actually do fit perfect without modification, at least not that I know of. But these require modification to fit, so just keep that in mind. So those are some preventative modifications that you can do to your vehicle that can stop damage from actually happening, and it can also clean your engine up. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments below. Hoping to do these videos once a week. Next week we'll be talking about scheduled maintenance, what you should be doing, when you should be doing it. And then after that we're going to get into the juicy stuff, which is actually making some more power out of your vehicle. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit that like button, and hit the little doorbell button down below so it tells you when I upload these videos. Go check out our Facebook page and our Instagram page, The Fast Religion on Instagram. Have a good day.